Allens Investigate, airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Yay! Hi there. Welcome to the Allens Investigate.
Indeed.
We're broadcasting live on United Public Radio Network 105.3 and 107.7 FM from New Orleans.
Yes, and I'm Gary Allen, the Cockney Bard, and this is my beautiful wife, Shona Allen.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Well, tonight on our very first show, because it's a brand new show, we'd like to welcome our very special guest, Michelle Desrochers, radio presenter and producer, media personality, highly sought after paranormal consultant, and all-round lovely person.
Yes, indeed.
Michelle has a passion for ancient history, culture and architecture, and considers herself an explorer of all that would be deemed otherworldly. Michelle, welcome.
Hello.
Hi, Michelle. Nice to see you.
Yeah, great to see you. How are
Thank you for having me on. I've been very excited about it.
That's a
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Yeah, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming.
How are you?
A pleasure. So, first show.
Yeah, indeed.
Very
Yeah,
exciting.
it's
Very
exciting. Yes, exciting. And we're looking at loads of different subjects and hoping to investigate them and see what we can unravel.
And so tonight we're investigating you, Michelle.
Oh,
In a
no.
nice way.
Oh,
In a
no.
gentle way, Michelle. In a gentle
So
way.
roles have been reversed tonight.
It is a bit of role reversal for me. Mind you, I've been in the hot seat a lot, so I think I'll be okay.
Oh, bless you.
So, where did your interest in the paranormal begin, Michelle?
Oh, wow. For me, I think it's been a part of my life, literally, probably in the past lives, apparently. But I remember just, having interactions with spirit people from really as a child. And I was very fortunate to grow up in a family that didn't discourage it. Well, my father was sort of like, the house is settling, that kind of thing. You didn't really go there, even though he was intuitive and his family was. But my mother's side, we come from a long line of mediums, so it was always encouraged. If I saw somebody, they would literally just show me photographs without leading me. Like they just didn't want to frighten me, but they didn't want to make me feel silly either, right?
No.
That's brilliant. Which is really nice because, to me and to Gary, we believe that this is a very natural gift that everybody has. We all have these capabilities within.
Yeah.
It's just that for some people it to be more latent and more easily available than to others.
Yeah.
And perhaps that's to do with, social conditioning and various things.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I believe that we all have gifts. I believe that, you stop using them at some point. Children, are very, very intuitive. And then when they start going through puberty and they go through all these emotional changes, they'll either, if it's encouraged, they'll usually retain it. And if it's discouraged, they'll sort of bury them for a while if they have a healthy fear of it. And I didn't have that. I was really fortunate. I've worked with a lot of families whose children, because they are so intuitive, tend to see everything and other things gravitate to them, whether it be spirit people looking for help because they're not acknowledging that, hey, this is a child. They just see a light and they figure maybe they'll get assistance. And a lot of times it's chalked up as an imaginary friend. Don't be silly. You're ridiculous. And then the child does not want to talk about it because they've been belittled about it or they feel foolish about it. And then if something scary comes in, they're afraid to talk about it. And that's usually when things go bad. So those are usually the children that will bury them for a while.
Yeah, it's interesting with children. They do say some strange things, don't they? At times they do see things that others don't. And
our little one, when she was very small, we just sort of moved in fairly recently, and she was definitely seeing something at the door. The door was there, and she was kind of peeping around, and she smiled, so she was definitely seeing somebody there.
Yeah.
Right.
Animals as well, isn't it? Animals can sense, can't they?
It's the same, yeah. Animals and children. I mean, they sense everything. There are a lot of paranormal investigators who will bring dogs on investigations with them. I sort of have mixed feelings about things like that because, um, yes, they'll see something, but they really can't speak for themselves. We've actually worked with families who have had attachments go onto their pets because the pet can't communicate it.
Oh, goodness.
So it goes undetected for a really long time, you know.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
Yeah,
sorry,
so that's difficult, isn't it?
Well, it is difficult. Yeah, yeah. We're great lovers of animals, me and Shona, and you know, we've had a lot of experience with it. And have you any great ghost stories to tell us? Have you seen any ghosts, for example?
Oh my goodness. I've seen
Silly question.
many things, yeah, in my travels. I've had some pretty phenomenal experiences throughout, you know, I mean, my life, but uh, doing this more on a professional level over the last couple of decades, I've been brought into homes or locations that have been really, really crazy active. I mean,
Yeah.
I've seen many manifestations. I've never been attacked. I've often, you know, been asked, have you
Right.
ever been attacked? I'm like, I can't say that I have. I've worked with people who've been scratched, who've been hit. You know, I was with a colleague at an old jail. I mean, old on this side of the world. Nothing in respect to how old things are on your side of the world. But you know, he was actually being hit, and he was down on the floor. And
Goodness me.
my first mind, because I've never been attacked, I'm like, quit goofing around, get off the floor. And he's looking at me going, I can't. I'm like, oh, you're under attack. Okay, gotcha. You know,
Okay.
but I mean, you know, I've had things manifest in front of me. I one time woke up actually and saw something. It looked like it was rising up out of the floor.
Really?
Goodness me.
And yeah, you know, I'm like,
Right.
it's because I know it's not what you expect to see. But you know, I was in my adolescent years, and it was just all like a big mist and a fog at first. So I'm just like, oh, it's got to be my eyes. You know, to have to adjust my eyes. Then it became very almost solid form. And it was just this massive being. I mean, and it was frightening because I could see like what looked like horns coming up, and I'm just like, okay, right there is a concern. But you know, so
Bye.
I know, yeah, I'm not sure, you know, bad touch, get out, you know, but you know, I did have something had come into the house at some point when I went through puberty, you know, and at that point something came in and really tormented the family, like my family, for probably about 3 or 4 years. And when I say tormented, it's just more of a feeling of, you know, not like people were attacked or anything like that, but you felt it when it came into your space. You know, like my siblings were afraid to go down into the basement. And when you're staying in what's called an oppressed state, where something is sort of has its thumb on you and affecting, you know, your personality and your moods, things like that, it got to be really heavy. Like I liked the basement. Like you know, I was a cool kid. Like there's 7 years between myself and my other sister. I'm like, I want the room in the basement. I don't be hanging out with little kids, you know. So instead, I got to hang out with whatever the heck it was that came in the house. But you know, it's. I went on to do this because I lived it and I had an understanding of it.
Well, you know, maybe that was in a funny kind of a way, was kind of just sort of ushering you into that direction.
That does remind me of my first experience, because I was 7, and I remember that we woke up and my father was shouting because he could hear some sort of chains in the hallway. And when we got up, the front door was open, the back door was open, the telly was on, the radio was on. It was incredible because we obviously everything had been turned off when we went to bed. And anyway, my dad was explaining this to his brother about 2 or 3 weeks later, and his brother said, "Oh yeah," he said, "that's a right load of nonsense." He said, "If that's true, that great big mirror on above the fireplace is going to fall down." And he did, yeah, and it smashed into 1,000 pieces, and we never had no more. And that was my first experience. So.
Wow,
You know,
and nothing happened after that? The mirror just fell and that was the end of it? Maybe they just didn't like the mirror.
That was the end of that. Yeah. But that sort of what you just told me reminded me of that. Yeah, that story, and that was the very beginning for me. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
See, it's hard for kids being so young to experience something like that. And I mean, what do you do with something like that? My kids, I always thought, don't think about things like this, and it's out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
I mean, I had cleared myself years before, obviously as a young adult, but having children, I didn't bank on the fact that they would be able to see.
No.
The paranormal wasn't something, it's not like it is today where there's information everywhere, there's TV shows everywhere. Back then, I mean, you didn't have the internet. You just, you had to go to the public library to read up on it. You couldn't just call up someone to come and investigate, right? Like you guys do. Yeah, you just don't do it. I'm aging myself a bit,
What
but
you
it's,
do?
but my kids are seeing things and their abilities all varied. And I think when especially females, when we go through puberty, we have like emotional upheavals. Same with menopause. Being female, we're emotional creatures. And my daughter went through, when she went through hers, I was like, oh boy, I knew I was in trouble. She would call me and say, the statue, because I had this big statue, and she goes, it's just moving across the floor. And I'm going, stop it. You're projecting. Psychokinesis. Okay, you're projecting energy. Stop it. Because I knew there was nothing in the house, that it couldn't be anything else. So we really know how to project energy.
It's difficult. It's difficult from a skeptical point of view to, for someone who doesn't understand it to sort of get their head around it, isn't it?
Oh, it is. I've worked with many skeptics, and I've learned early on that it's different for everybody. I've seen skeptics become believers. I've seen skeptics say, nope, not going there. And you have to, when you're in the field, you really have to be, I think, open-minded but logical. I don't ever look at anything as face value. I'm like, no, there could be a multitude of reasons for this to be happening. Obviously, if you're working at a location that's had many witnesses, if the families, more than one person is experiencing things, and you have to put some merit into that, but you really do take on the job of counselor as well. I actually dabbled in counseling, just took a quick online course just to make sure I always communicated properly with people, to not ever say anything that would cause more harm, because people really do look to you for the answers.
Yeah, it's a big responsibility, isn't it?
It really is. I even to this day, when I work with people, I'm just like, let me take the weight for a little while. Don't worry about it, and let's work together and work through it. I've educated people on how to clear their own spaces, because I'm not going to be around forever. My team's not going to be around forever. We're good at what we do. We specialize. When I say specialize, mostly it's our area of study and work falls on malevolent hauntings, because I don't know, we just have a knack for it. I've always been able to do it because I lived it.
It's really interesting as well, Michelle, because I mean, we visited America ourselves, because we went a few times, once for our honeymoon, and another time we visited as well, and we went to a ghost town called Calico.
Right.
And that really was a ghost town as well. It was so haunted. And we saw manifestations. We saw a lady walk across the street and then just disappear.
Wow.
Yeah, amazing, wasn't it?
It was. And then we saw a little girl as well. And also ectoplasm, what people call ectoplasm, which basically was like a big milky cloud. It's the only way that glowed.
Right.
I can describe it, and that was absolutely amazing.
I got pushed, didn't I? And then they had
the
saying office coins you could hear, couldn't you?
The assaying office. That was an interesting one, because we kept hearing these kind of clinking of old-fashioned coins, because they have a very kind of distinctive noise, clink, clink. We said, you hear that as well? Yes. The guy said, yes, I hear that. He said, well, actually, that used to be the assaying office. So that was very interesting. But so many things. But what was really interesting, what I was just to come on to, is the fact that obviously, we've got a lot of history here in England, and we have lots of hauntings. But however, I personally noticed that when we went to America, it seemed to be far stronger. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
That's really fascinating that you say that. I find it really the reverse for me. I wonder if it's I wonder if it's because you're so accustomed, to how an energy is, like your side of the world. Because I traveled extensively throughout my life. I've had a lot of friends and family in the UK. The last time I was there, I actually just spent time up in Scotland, and I mean,
wow.
I was walking around kind of like buzzing all the time. But I think maybe because you guys are used to it. I mean, you almost become conditioned to it. On this side of the world, it's like I don't feel any difference. I've traveled throughout, Canada and in the United States. This house here is, it's mildly haunted now, but it was ridiculously haunted when I moved in here. It was just like, what the heck? This was, a place where I would film a lot. A lot of shows have been filmed here because it's so active. And I think I became so used to it. It was just like, okay, whatever. The door would open and be like, hey, let's keep walking. It's like, how are you today? Good. All right. So everybody's happy. Everybody's happy. Okay, everybody's happy. And it becomes so conditioned to it. I would sit down and say, okay, film crew's coming in today. Anybody want to partake? Nobody wants to partake. It's up to you, and blah, 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 and move on. If we would do a restoration project, we would explain, okay, this is what's going on. Don't get upset. We're not taking the house down. We're just moving the wall, or because it was never there before. And in turn, the spirits here have shown us things. We found a stunning doorway that had been blocked in somewhere in time, the history of the house. And when we opened it up, it was this beautiful door with all this wainscoting and ornate, like edging inside of it. We're like, why would anybody just cover this up? But let's face it, old buildings undergo many different faces, right? Apartment buildings,
I'll tell you what is interesting, Michelle, is that a lot of people who work in sort of spiritual fields, from my experience after 30 years of it, I've quickly come to realize that there are two sides. There is a dark side and there is a light side.
True.
And, there is a positive and a negative, and you can't have one without the other. So when you meet a lot of spiritual people, they all love and light and, and they don't seem to understand that there is a dark side too. What do you think of that?
Oh boy. I always say there has to be balance. I've worked in darkness most of my last 2 decades. Like I said, it's just something I excelled in because I experienced it, I think, and I don't have a fear of it.
No.
Like I really don't. I'm a strong believer in mindset. I believe we are very powerful individuals and we have more control than we think we do. If you give it to them, they'll take it. If you don't give it to them, I've had voice recordings, something growling at me. I'm like, I don't even want to hear it right now. And I leave it at that and I keep walking. As one instance where something growled at me in real time and I was on my way to visit a family that's was in a really bad way. And somebody just growled at me. I grabbed my purse and I said, I'll see you in an hour, mister. And I just kept going. And it's probably going, what? And I got there and I came in. I'm like,
I'm not going to mess with Michelle.
It does remind me, Michelle, it does remind me though, when people talk about like schizophrenia, where people say they heard voices and they went out and stabbed someone to death. And from my understanding, that's not so far-fetched because, you do hear voices for good and bad. And so it's about being able to sort out the wheat from the chaff.
Yeah, and it's about being balanced mentally.
Mentally balanced to be able to deal with it. Yeah.
You really have to be, like for myself, real time, I am a light worker. I do planetary light work. With other mediums who we do work with anything that has to do with the planet, its energy, its consciousness, things like that. So that's my balance. When I'm dealing with a situation with a family going through really hardcore things or an individual, I will usually, you have to ask those hard questions. We talk about schizophrenia. It's a very fine line between schizophrenia, psychosis, and an alleged oppression, of a really malevolent entity. Like people say demons. It's a fine line. I will usually request a psychological assessment, even psychiatric, depending how bad it is. And then I will require permission from that individual, the doctor, to work with the individual. Because if the medication isn't working, and I've had people say they're on medication for schizophrenia, and the doctors will always give me permission, says just do not, allow them to go off. Like, they can't go off the medication, to which I'm like, yes, absolutely, no problem. But the medication isn't working. So it's something else. And now a lot of psychologists are coming forward and saying, like, they're working with the concept of this could be something more supernatural.
Yeah.
And a lot of mediums who are also psychologists will incorporate them together. So we are seeing more and more of that now.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting as well that the word that psychologist was a study of the soul in the 16th century, and then it's become a study of the mind.
Wow.
The irony of that.
No kidding.
Yeah. That's perfectly
I love
true.
that.
So, yeah, it's perfectly true. So, but it is a fascinating subject, and I think the more that you begin to understand it, the more you delve into it. And I think a lot of psychiatrists and psychologists, it is quite scary at times, I think, and you have to really understand the human being and what we are. We're basically energy. That's what we are. And we're eternal beings, and a lot of people don't really understand that. They think, you just born and you just go to work and you feed the kids and then you die and then that's the end of it. But from my experience, and I'm sure from your, Michelle, and Shona's experience, we know that's simply not the case.
I agree. I always say that there's a whole other world out there that's around us, and we fail, I think, to see it all. The example I use often is, let's say you have a glass and you leave it on the table and you go to work for the day, because we're so conditioned to a routine. You come home, let's say the glass is moved. Yeah. Would you say to yourself, oh gosh, I forgot to put the glass away this morning? Or would you say to yourself, that's not where I left the glass? Who moved the glass? No. Most people will say, oh, I forgot to put that away, or I forgot to wash it. I forgot it on the table. We're just not conditioned to look outside of the box. Like, we have this tunnel vision when it comes to our routines, and all kinds of things could be going on around us. And I learned that a lot living. I mean, I've lived, in haunted locations. I will only stay in haunted locations if I can help it anywhere I travel in the world, because I love to be in that world. I love to be, with the spirits, and I love architecture and ancient history, and I will stay in really as old of a place and as haunted as I can.
Have you ever been to a place called the Ancient Ram Inn in Gloucestershire?
I have not. Everybody keeps telling me I need to go there.
Oh my goodness me!
That's very haunted, that one. Definitely,
but the Isle of Wight is it the Isle of Wight where it's okay?
No, it's in Gloucestershire.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people that have done investigations and things. I mean, we visited, and
we met John Humphreys, didn't we?
John Humphreys, the owner, who sadly passed away now, but his daughter's taken over. But that was a really, the energy in there was.
Well, he did say to us that
not pleasant, particularly.
He said to us that the spirits wanted to have sex with him. Incubus or something.
It's a succubus if it's a girl. Yeah.
I didn't know what to make of that, really, to be honest.
I know. It's the thing. I know.
I mean, John was an extremely pleasant chap to talk to. He really was. And he told me a story about the bishop's door, and he said, I've heard 3 knocks on the bishop's door, which is upstairs, and I went upstairs for a tinkle. And sure enough, I heard the 3 knocks on the bishop's door. So what he told me was perfectly true. So, but the problem is it was supposed to be built on an old graveyard, and we had a terrible row, didn't we?
We did.
We had a terrible row. It was.
I think the thing is that's what negative energy does. Yeah. I think most people don't understand that. Is it can work in a number of different ways, and it can cause things to go wrong. It can cause anger, rows, and all sorts of things.
Well, what happened to us? Is that we had a massive row, right? She stole the car. She stole it. Drove off in the car. And I thought it was the end of the relationship, but no, it wasn't the end of the relationship. But nevertheless, we drove an hour and a half the wrong way. We got a flat tire, and this was caused by this negative force. You know, maybe you could enlighten us on that one.
I believe that it's not hard to absorb energy to start with, but if there's something about you that the entity or spirit is curious about, or they think, oh, you're love and light, I'm not digging that. They're gonna go mess with you for a little while. And that's the kind of thing that happens. Like, if everything can go wrong, it will. I've experienced it myself. I've had people who I've filmed with. You know, we went to this one location that we were filming at, and it was supposed to be all, oh no, it's just okay. It's just the maid that used to be there, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, we get in there, we're thinking there's something so malevolent in there that it changed the whole film thing, because we were not given any of this information by the people at the location who owned it. After we left, everybody was having issues. I mean, we were all like really cranky, and I'm usually aware of things like that. I'm just like, oh boy, okay. So I worked on myself, and then I had to clear everybody else. You know, I said, okay, if you have something going on, let me know. I'm just going to tap in, and I'm just gonna give everybody a good light up, and then everybody was fine. But like, they do, I've seen one entity affect multiple locations at one time.
Really?
Well, how does it affect, Amisha, how does it affect you? You know, so if you're on, say, for example, I'm on a telephone call, and I shouldn't say something, I know when that is, and I can't say it. So that's on it. And also, and also you may, well, this used to happen a lot, but not now, it doesn't, because I'm much more experienced now. But also you get like your face feels hot, really burning if you're with someone who's really negative, and you know, you become fully aware that there might be a problem with this person, and they might be aggressive or something else, and you know, you become fully aware. So how does it affect you? How do you know if somebody, apart from being intuitive, you know, does it affect you in any way physical?
Yes, actually. It does affect you physically. I meet all kinds of people, and some of them I can tell there's something with them. You know, I'm sure when you meet people, I always say the spidey senses kick in. You're like, "Ooh, something's with you. There's something about you." Yeah. I know. It's like, yeah, no, you know, no hugs, no. You know, but this is where I say grounding your energy comes in really handy. I've sent off grounding techniques to many people. You know, we use it when we're working. I recommend it to people who are assisting, because what it does is it grounds your energy to the point where it makes it that much harder for something to attach to you. And then when you work with frequencies, vibrations, reflections, you can actually project, you know, flip the energy around. So picture a mirror. Picture yourself putting up a mirror facing out. Well, something comes up at you, and basically the idea is that it sees its own reflection, and then it feels repelled. But what it does also, I've had people say to me, people have been dropping out of my life, and I'm like, are they good people? They're like, they're angry people, or they're negative people. So, but then they blame you. It's like, oh, every time I see you, I feel vile. But realistically, they're probably having their own energy coming back at them, and they're like, they don't like it. So, you know, so it will also get rid of people.
Yeah, the one thing people don't like sometimes is truth. You know, when you tell them the truth, you know,
they don't like that, do
they?
Not everybody wants to hear it. No.
But you know, you just have to say it, don't you?
Sometimes,
you know?
yeah.
I mean,
I'm a bit more diplomatic than you. You're a bit sort of.
Hey? They're meant to crack a nap, anyway. I do believe that. You know, I think it's interesting. I like facts, Michelle. I like facts. I like proven evidence. You know, if someone tells me they believe in something, I'll be open-minded. Sure, I'll be open. And same as Shona, we'll be open-minded. but we don't go full on and raise the flag, shall I say, unless we're absolutely convinced.
I think that goes back to what you were saying earlier, though, and that is that you have to be a little bit more on the ground.
Yeah,
Say, well,
sure.
okay, let's make sure it isn't something more logical before we jump to the conclusion that it's paranormal, for example. You know,
Right.
So I think it's very important to always keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think,
Well,
you know, what you put out there comes back to you.
Yeah. What do you think of Egypt? You got an interest in Egypt? I know Shona's very much into Egypt. Yeah.
I've been to Egypt, and I had interesting experiences there. A lot of it's past life for me. I really wish that I knew then some of the things I know now, because we evolve as people. We develop a different sort of awareness, and you can experience it in such a different way. At the time that I went, it was just a different time. You know, people were like first off, I got off the plane and got grabbed by, you know, their chamber of commerce at the time, like, because my hair was the same color as Shauna's, and it was just like really, you know, long hair, and they're just like, you cannot go roaming around Egypt looking like that. You know, I'm like, why not? Because you will go missing. Like they said, what do you want to see? Let us plan out your itinerary so we know where you are. So I'm like, God, like that wasn't like frightening enough, you know. And then on my last day there, I end up with this chic type individual with a bodyguard who was considerably bigger than him, and he was a big man, you know, and with a bunch of flowers, and you stay with me, and you know, and I'm like, my family will miss me, I'm sure, but so you know, aside from those experiences, I had an incredible paranormal experience when I was there, because I was in the Great Pyramid, and Egypt was a very poor country, and at the time, you know, I had somebody say, "Oh, would you like to spend more time in the pyramid by yourself?" I'm like, "I can do that." Okay. Well, it wasn't a very busy day. It was a weekday. So, you know, they held out their hand. I'm like, I'll grease that palm, no problem. And I ended up, you know, they let me have about, you know, like it wasn't a ridiculous amount of time. It's like, well, you can have, you know, half an hour in this area all by yourself. And then they introduced me to an area that the people weren't allowed to go in, I'm sure, unless you were greasing palms. So I went down into this chamber on my belly, literally, and I came up into this room, and there was this spirit individual there, and my head pops up, and he was, I'm going to assume someone, because I thought this person felt like he lived nearby. Well, it turned out like a year later, I found out that they had excavated this entire village, like this community at the base of the pyramids. So I'm looking at this guy and I'm going, oh, I said, you know, you're dead. You know, do you realize you're dead? And he goes, you're dead. I'm going, maybe it is me. I'm like, maybe I just slipped into this dimension. Who the heck knows? I am underneath the pyramid. I pop up. There's this man who's half dressed, you know, and you're dead. And somehow it's just the word that telepathically came to me, and I'm thinking, well, that's not Egyptian, but it's just how it was projected to me. And I thought to myself, I just went, maybe, and I just waved goodbye, started my ascent on my belly back up the thing. It's just like, gosh darn it, like, wow, it was really interesting.
It's an interesting place. It's Shona absolutely loves it there, don't you?
Well, the thing is, I mean, I went to Egypt many moons ago, and I mean, like you, I personally believe I've had some experiences to do with past lives in Egypt as well. So, you know, I'm with you on that one, definitely. Yeah. But when I went, I just got to go to Luxor. I didn't actually make it to the pyramids, and I deeply regret
the reverse. I didn't get to make it to Luxor. I didn't have time.
So we'll have to share our experience.
We can combine our trips and have a shared experience.
Or even better, we'll have to go together to Egypt and go and experience.
What was that story with Howard Carter? There was a story with Howard Carter, wasn't there? Do you remember?
Howard Carter actually came from Norfolk, interestingly, from a little town called Swaffham. And there is actually a little museum. It's only very small, but it's very interesting because they've got some sort of items of Howard Carter's there, and it's really, really fascinating.
Yeah.
We took a trip there because it's only, what, 45 minutes away.
Yeah.
We took a trip there, and we actually went and visited the little cottage that he actually lives in.
Right.
Because, you know, I think he was quite a different character when he was growing up. I think that he wasn't a run-of-the-mill kind of person. I don't think he actually went to school. I think he was home educated. And I think that he had a far greater sort of, you know, open mind on everything. So I think
some people just do. They just they don't need to be trained to do something. They just naturally fall into it. I'll tell you though, speaking of Howard Carter, when I spoke to people in Egypt, because I had 2 different guides for the time that I was there. One was an older man. And I said, what is your take on curses? For example, the curse of Tutankhamun. Older generation. Oh, you do not want to go there. You know, it's going to be terrible for you. You don't want to go there. The younger generation are just, oh yeah, go. You'll have a great time. Don't worry about it. I'm just like, well, I don't know now. You know, it was fascinating to see the contrast between the 2 belief systems, you know. So I'm thinking, do I, don't I? You know,
it makes you wonder what they have found, though, doesn't it? You know, they've probably found things that are not hidden things that what they call UPARTs and that.
UPARTs, it's unexplained objects.
Unexplained objects,
I think that it's very interesting as well because you know, I think there are many things that have been found that are unexplained, and I think that even looking at how the pyramids were built and the things like the big sarcophagus inside as well, can't really quite be explained by using the kind of tools that they expect us to believe they used. Quite the contrary, I believe. I think that, you know, technologically, I think they were very advanced, maybe in slightly different ways from our understanding, but I do believe that they were very advanced people.
What makes you wonder where the technology came from? I mean, realistically, there's a lot of out of place artifacts that, especially in Egypt, you know, like the Baghdad light bulb. And what's interesting about that is they've actually found a tomb. I mean, first off, there's Seti the First has got, you know, hieroglyphs of helicopters and planes and right, UFOs, and they actually found, I believe it was in the 70s, they found a tomb of what looked like to be a tall alien, you know, with the big head, probably a tall white or a tall gray. And of course, the KGB sort of got wind of that, and he was brought in by somebody in Egypt who whistle blew it, I guess, and they went in and they this thing up. Like there's video footage of it. This was only back in the 70s. Like there's old black and white footage of it. So I think just if that is indeed a thing, you have to ask yourself, okay, so ancient civilizations, they didn't look at extraterrestrials the way I think we've been conditioned to look at extraterrestrials. And I think that the ancients worked, you know, with the beings from the sky. They would often say, our friends from the stars. You know, the whole Indians would just say, yeah, you know, the ant people who were described to look like grays, who came from under the ground, like subterranean. So I mean, they emulated them. They built monuments to them. They revered them. It's our generation, I think, since the Rendlesham days that, oh boy, gotta fear these guys, and we do.
It's interesting, Michelle, is that I've never been a great one for aliens. I've got to be honest, but nevertheless, in Benidorm in 1980, I managed to see a UFO, and I had high-powered binoculars on it, and it was saucer shaped and everything, and it was going at extraordinary speeds, I have to say, and it suddenly disappeared. The military did bring out the stealth bomber some period of years later, but it was interesting, and I can't say either way whether that was military project, black project, or whether that was some. All I know is I saw it. So, so to me, it was true in the essence that I actually saw it and witnessed it with my own eyes through binoculars. And but I couldn't explain it. It was going at such extraordinary speeds.
But we don't know what the
And
technology is, right? Reverse engineering, like we don't know. We're not made privy to that.
Well, it always kind of made me wonder with the Nazis, because I mean they were supposed to be very into the saucer projects as well, and when they were supposed to be going out to these various places, because they went to Egypt too, you know, we're always kind of led to believe that they were looking for the origins of the Aryan race.
The Holy Grail on that, yeah.
But were they actually looking for ancient artifacts
or technology? For sure.
Yeah.
You know that they went to Rennes-le-Château, right?
Carcassonne, yeah, they actually were at Carcassonne, I believe, weren't they, trying to find
they went to both locations. So it's
Carcassonne, haven't you?
I love Carcassonne. I absolutely I love Carcassonne. I love Rennes-le-Château. When we left Rennes-le-Château, my son looked at me and he goes, "Why does it feel wrong to leave here?" Because we have a lot of family lineage that come out through northern France, south of France, Portugal, things like that, you know. And well, you know, we've got, you know, Templars in the family and stuff like that. And you know, he just says everything about leaving here feels wrong. I'm just like, funny that, you know. So yeah. So it's fascinating. I know that there, you know, the people out there that, you know, you're thinking the Nazis, they're huge into esoteric knowledge, the occult. They knew there was something there, out of place artifacts, relics, you know, lost relics, things like that.
Yeah, well, they were very into the Theosophical movement as well, weren't they? They were very interested in Madame Blavatsky. They were, you know, big into that, weren't they? And then, of course, you got Wewelsburg Castle, where they had the big round table in as well.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. They knew something. They knew something, and getting into Vatican archives and things like that. Like, there's a lot of information out there that maybe there are elite people of the world who are made privy to it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's believed that, you know, there are people using these old occult, you know, ways to.
Well, it's like interesting, Nikola Tesla, isn't it?
Nikola Tesla's another one, isn't
free it? Energy, that's what I say, more free energy.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
Electricity bills, that's the free energy.
I can talk about anything, just go. I'll follow along, believe me.
So, what about, Michelle, what about things that, like, for predicting the future? Have you had any future
premonitions? I did not. I to my knowledge, I've not had premonitions. I've never paid attention if I have. My sister used to get them, but when she was young, she'd be just like, you know, she would tell you when the telephone would ring, or she would have dreams and she would just say, well, I think this is going to happen. But it's just nothing that she went further on. I did work with an amazing woman, and who ended up with, I find gifted people often end up being the target of malevolent energies. And she's extremely gifted medium, and she predicted the World Trade Center, 9/11, and ended up, I think, with Homeland Security at her door 2 years later, because somebody remembered that she had made this prediction. And I can tell you, in working with her through years, and without giving away a lot, you know, because I don't share cases, private people's information, but she had, in working with her, she goes, things come to me, please write it down, because then I'll forget, and I don't go there again. I don't want a record of anything. So I would write down whatever she would tell me about. She saw the pandemic, she saw all of that. And when I went back into the files, I'm like, holy crap, banged it out of the ballpark again. You know.
I'll tell you what is interesting, Michelle, is that people have often said to me that about, if they say it's about the spirit world, whatever you want to call it, they say that they have no idea of time, right? Okay. So I've had a couple of experiences that I'd like to share with you and share with the viewers out there.
Of course.
And the first one, which is a sad tale, but nevertheless it shows a period of time. I was in a place in London with a friend, John, and my friend Sheila, and we were talking, and I suddenly said to John, you've lived many past lives and died many violent deaths, but I can't say that in this one. And I said, but I turned to Sheila and I said, but I can't say the same for you. And Sheila said, oh, don't be silly, I'm off to bed. And she went to bed, and I said to John, I keep getting fire with her, fire. And well, 17, 18 years later, she died in Grenfell Tower. So on the 16th floor.
So you had a premonition.
That's a 17 to 20 years span. And then the other one I had was I had an Ulster dream. It was on a Friday night, and in this dream that I had, it was 8-runner race. I could see number 4, and his name was Tedborough. They told me it was Tedborough, and the horse come from last to first and won, and I had a winning ticket in my hand of 11 to 1. So the next day I got up and I thought, oh, I've got the Sun newspaper. I looked in the Sun newspaper, and the first race at Newcastle, and I still got the press cutting from it, 8-runner race, number 4, Tedborough, 11 to 1. And I put 20 quid on it and it won. So there you go. That was the very next day. So there's 2 examples there. One being one day and one being 17 to 20 years.
Right.
So what do you make of that?
I think time is pretty irrelevant. I have had people say things to me like, I see this happening in your life. A friend of mine, also gifted medium, saw 2 or 3 of my pets all passing within like a year. And I'm thinking, no, we have to be off your game on that one. But I didn't give it another thought, right? And they all did. I had these teeny little cheese, and they were all older, and they all passed months apart. Yeah. And I mean, within that year. Yet I've had the same person along with another 3 or 4 individuals say someone in my life was going to be passing. And the difference here is I believe I intervened by saying, this person close to me, I said, I would really feel better if you went and got your heart checked, because it was centered around around the heart. So, and
Hey, George.
George Jones.
And he went, had his heart checked, and he goes, okay, and there were things he was doing in his life. I said, you need to change certain things.
Exactly.
And he did. So it never came to pass. Right? It never, because when 4 people pick up the same thing, the same circumstance, I believe you can intervene with it. But time is irrelevant. And if I had a dime for every time, or a dollar for every time somebody said, you can't peg the time frame on the things that you see.
Well, them 2 examples, they prove it, don't they? 2 things happened, 1 year and one day and 17 to 20 years. So that really proves it, doesn't it?
And maybe as well that there are certain things in life that really are destined and you can do nothing about, but there are other things that are kind of a series of choices, shall we say, in life. And you take those choices, and that's all part of your life lesson, really.
It's like us, dear, isn't it?
It is. It changes your destiny, I think. You're lucky you just got a tap on that one.
I think this time. Don't advertise.
All of a sudden, lights go down, Gary goes down. But I think every time, this is where I think readings get a bit convoluted as well, because you can get a reading every day, and potentially it will change because you change your mind. If you come to a crossroad and you decide to go left instead of right, your path has changed. Chances are the people you interact with or meet will change. Circumstances change. And I personally have never done readings. I've done it, and I didn't have a good experience with it, because the first time I had my best friend come up to me, 18 years old. Of course, you have no tact at 18 years old. She goes, I want to know if my boyfriend's cheating on me. I went, yes. Okay, my bad on that. So she tried to take her own life. And I realized you have to have a degree of responsibility.
You have to be,
If somebody will be talking to me, and if I have a spirit nattering at me saying, okay, say this, someone's like, all right, then I'll say, okay, I'm just going to put this out there, and I put it out there. But that's not habitual for me. I don't like to do that, because I don't want that responsibility. I don't want to lead somebody the wrong way. I'm in the the field of helping people in a different way, and that's what I use my abilities for. But I think a person who hangs, they will hang on everything a medium says. On an average, it becomes an addiction almost. And I think people have to be diligent in saying, you can walk out of this door and change your entire destiny in the next 5 minutes. You can't hang on it.
Okay. Exactly. I remember when I was really young, I was just a teenager, and I went to one of these gypsies.
Yes.
Ball and everything, and she told me that I was going to be a hairdresser on a cruise ship, and I spent the next 2 months being thoroughly depressed. And I have absolutely nothing against hairdressers at all.
Right, and cruise ships, but it's not for me. It
was just not for me, and I was several months I was totally depressed by it and deflated, and then obviously I realized, well, actually, hey, no.
And you also had that. You remember? We went to see this medium, and I won't mention his name for fear of embarrassing him. But anyway, he said he picked up the name of your father, didn't he? And he said, "I'm getting Jim. I'm getting Jim." And Shona said, "Yes, Jim. That's my father." And he said, "He's dead, isn't he?"
Jesus. Okay then. Yeah. Oh boy.
But he wouldn't have it. He wouldn't have it. He said, "No, he's definitely dead." She said, "No, my father isn't dead." So
see, people fish, right? That's the problem, is knowing when you're being, when the lure is going out. And
well, I know, and also, of course, that kind of thing is what gives mediums and intuitives, etc., a really bad name, because they do that.
They do fish, there's a lot of them do fish.
From personal experience, I mean, I've met some incredibly accurate mediums. They've been absolutely spot on, getting names from nowhere, and they're quite unusual names. I mean, you've done that yourself, haven't you? To also the other side of the coin, where you're just thinking, no.
I know. Some of it's just like, you should not do this for fun or a living.
But it is a great shame that people don't quite understand it. But a lot of it is misinformation, and a lot of people read too many books. And I've never read a book in my life. All my gifts are natural. So but I think if you went down a path of being taught by someone, and they teach you what they know, but it don't necessarily mean it's right, but that's what they do, don't they?
It's better to learn with someone if you can.
Yeah, exactly. You need, and that's it. Everyone makes mistakes in life, but it's all about learning, and it's all about getting on the the right path. And
and I think with teachers as well, I think the idea should be sort of, you're guiding people. You're not telling them how to do things. You're guiding them to find answers for themselves. I think that's what makes the best teacher. And I remember my biology teacher at school said to us in class, and I think this is the only ever useful thing that I ever got from school, I have to say. he said, "Remember, use books. Don't let books use you."
Yeah, exactly.
And I thought that just about sums it up for me.
Well, it's not bad advice when you factor in the point that somebody wrote that book. Just, what was that individual like? You're usually doing something based on that person's belief system.
Exactly.
So I think it's just, you take what you need basically from all of the information presented, don't you? What's right for you?
Life skills.
Exactly. Someone said to me, are you religious? And I said, no. And they said, but I thought you said you believed in God. I said, I do. But God is in everything. I said, my God is in everything. Nature, every single mortal thing. Life. My God is in life. So, I think you don't have to be religious to believe that.
No, I think so. I agree with you. I believe you can, find your faith, whether God, Allah, whatever the case may be, by taking a walk in the forest and just having that reflection with yourself, and He's within. He's within. You don't have to go to an institution and pay out your money and pay your dues, as they say.
Exactly. You know what I always think of, Michelle, is the bug when it's walking along and it suddenly plays dead, and the intelligence of that.
That's right.
what I always think about. How intelligent is that bug to know that if he can play dead, you might not hurt it.
Well, talking of which, did you know the female dragonfly? When the male dragonfly wants to mate with him, she plays dead and has a headache.
That sounds about right, doesn't it? Really?
Not interested. Yeah. Not interested. No. That's funny.
Lots
Oh
of
my
like
God.
between, yeah. Bring out the tablets, for God's sake.
Aw.
Oh, well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you, Michelle.
Yeah, it's
it
really
has.
It's a pleasure was mine. Thank
You're
you.
a
It was a
wonderful
lot of
human
fun.
being, and I wish you all the very best.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to say goodbye, and maybe we'll do it again sometime. Maybe you have to come on our show.
Let's
There's
hope so.
so much to talk about.
Yeah, so much to talk
We
about.
try and squish it all in the hour at the moment. So
Absolutely. All right, I'm going back behind the scenes.
Yeah, take care,
There you go.
Michelle.
Good night, my favorite.
Take care. Bye-bye.
bye, darling. So that was really good and entertaining. I really enjoyed.
Fabulous guest,
Michelle,
wasn't she?
yeah,
Fabulous
really,
guest,
really
very
interesting.
knowledgeable. Yeah, very
And
knowledgeable.
there's stuff as well, because I mean, I know that we're sort of in that genre, in that field, and we have our own experiences in things, but it's really interesting listening to someone else's take on that and what Michelle's experiences have been as well.
Yeah, it's fabulous. Yeah, it's interesting,
Because
you don't have to believe everything, but you have to think about what people say, and you have to look into the facts and and see what they say. Yeah, and see what they say.
But I think that's the thing, though. From looking from a skeptic's point of view, they might be sort of saying, "Oh, it's a load of rubbish and everything else, whatever." But it's very unfair, because unless you've actually experienced this yourself, I mean, there's been things that have happened to us, and we try and find a logical answer to it most of the time. We just say, well, that door, did it open because of the wind, for example, or something else happened, or was it vibration that caused it, or whatever? And if you can exclude all the logical explanations for something happen, and you're left then with an illogical, shall we say, explanation, then you have to say.
But when you're talking about destiny, we've never had a single date. And we've been married 20 years. We've been brought together by destiny. So there you go. There's hope for everybody. So if you haven't met the right person in your life yet, there is hope for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, that was an incredible story, really.
Yeah, you can read the story in the book In Search of the Swan, if you'd like. If you want to buy it, great.
On your website as well, the Cockney
Bard. www.thecockneybard.com.
Then it tells you all about it on there, and there's also some fabulous photos of our wedding and things as well. We had a medieval wedding on St. George's Day, which was very patriotic.
It was indeed, yeah.
We had jousting horses and
well, not jousting horses,
no, not the horses.
If the horses were jousting, that would
have been paranormal.
Wait.
But no, we had some jousting nights. And we got to ride on the horses on the way into the church as well, which was just absolutely fantastic. And the guy that provided the horses was called Tony Smart, and he does all the kind of provides the horses for films and things.
Yeah,
and
it was
the
excellent,
horse I
wasn't it?
rode, Capote, which is this beautiful white horse, was actually used in the film Braveheart. So I got to ride it, which is brilliant.
Yeah, it's great stuff. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Never enough time, is there?
No, never enough time. But I've enjoyed the first show. Have you?
Yeah, it's been really fun.
It's been great, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean,
and the aim is to educate people and try to show them a way.
I think the thing
get them on the right path.
As with everything, with all subjects, you have to have a discussion. And it has to be a rounded discussion, and you have to sort of come at it from different angles, don't you? That's how you find truth, isn't it? You have to look at all the facts. I mean, I know we're sort of having a bit of an issue about truth and things at the moment with what's going on in the world. But you have to get facts from all different angles. And once you've seen all the different angles, you can then come together and say, well, okay, that's it.
Well, that's why we leave it on the note. It's not my truth. It's not your truth. It's the truth.
Yeah, it's a fact, isn't it? So, and what's a fact? Something could be demonstrated and proven.
We'll say goodbye and see you next week.
I really enjoyed that. It was great, wasn't it?